No cancellation of domestic flights. NCD Police to set up new command center. Pacific Institute of Leadership and Governance committed. Good evening, I'm Kilawani, and thanks for joining us for Saturday's news. Following release of statements by National Pandemic Response Controller David Manning, as well as from airline companies in the country this week regarding domestic flights, there has been some confusion amongst the general public. Prime Minister James Marape, in a media conference yesterday, explained the intention of the government and the relevant authorities in the statements being issued, saying there is no cancellation of domestic flights.
National Pandemic Response Controller David Manning, in a statement released after criticisms from the public on new or amended measures regarding international and domestic travel, said there will be no mandatory vaccination nor situations created to force people to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Mr. Manning apologized to the people of Papua New Guinea for any fear and anxiety caused because of the way the measures were written, which created room for misinterpretation. Prime Minister James Marape, in a media conference yesterday, explained the new measures, particularly with regards to vaccination and eligibility to travel on various reasons.
Contrary to, like, for instance, last night there was a fear that we are shutting down local travels. Far from the truth, we're not shutting down local travels. But those who are vaccinated, you have added advantage. Like, for instance, you unmask, you could travel with no deep restrictions. So it pays to be vaccinated, but if you don't want to be vaccinated, please get it out. We're not forcing anyone to be vaccinated, but you have to be responsible in your country to ensure that others are safe from the spread of COVID-19.
The Prime Minister said with the emergence of the Delta strain that originates from India, Papua New Guineans need to be responsible as citizens with regards to measures being put in place by authorities. He also urged the Pandemic Response Controller and his team to use simple layman's language to communicate such statements on COVID-19 measures so as not to create confusion and misinterpretation.
And with the latest emergence of the Delta strain, we have to be responsible. And so without shutting down travel, without shutting down movements, but we want our citizens to take responsibility, including those of us who are regular travelers. And so those were, I think the clarity was further reissued by the controller to ensure our country knows what it is. And I've asked the controller, going forward, write in simple, plain terms, not in extraordinary, fancy lawyer's language or security conscious language. Write in simple terms, every ordinary Papuans can understand what we mean.
Dennis Orere, National EMTV News.
The police in the National Capital District will soon embrace the growth in technology with a new command center set to open. The command center will utilize multiple phone call responses, CCTV operations, and also provide an avenue to coordinate police resource across the city.
With the increase in information communication and technology innovations, including the access to information, policing in the 21st century needs to prioritize how to effectively use these advances to improve policing. Assistant Commissioner for Police, NCD and Central Command, Anthony Wagambi Jr., says it is a major priority.
Number one priority is the ICT. ICT in terms of radio communications and GPS tracking and effective and efficient tasking of jobs and follow-up and following up on them.
With the recent release of the police toll-free number 1-800-100, it hasn't been very effective, with multiple calls not being answered due to only one line available to receive one call at a time. That will soon change after an approval by the police hierarchy, partnering with the Australian Federal Police on an upgraded operations centre that will have all essential technology to improve caller turnaround and also coordinate the sector patrols.
A lot of people are complaining about calling the 1-800-100 number and not being answered or either going to voicemail. It's because we have only one handset. only one handset. So you can imagine during peak hours, there's a lot of activity in the city, and there are 10, 15 calls coming at the same time, at once. That's why either the call will go to call waiting or it will be engaged. Because there's only one person trying to answer 20 calls, but he or she can only take only one call.
With closed-circuit television, CCTV soon to be up and running, and with a better call response mechanism, it will ensure police have an advantage over their issue of manpower shortage.
With that command center coming in place, the CCTV, the live streaming will be put into that area. So our operators, there will be an operator tasked to monitor the CCTV 24 hours, 7 days a week. The task of that operator is to sit and watch the CCTV. And that will go in line with what we want to do, rolling out throughout the city with the CCTV program, so that when it receive a call on the emergency number saying there's a problem, say 6 Mile, the operator can immediately go to that camera and see what's happening down there.
The advantage of CCTV will also ensure complaints against police are monitored and seen firsthand.
And then at the same time, too, we will be able to monitor units and deter unnecessary police allegations, because we'll know who's where at all every time.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
Security firms in the country can help with policing, with Anthony Wagambi, Assistant Commissioner of Police, saying the constabulary is working on partnering with security firms to cover areas in Port Moresby. Wagambi says it will be a partnership that will ensure the presence of law and order is widespread and efficient across the city.
Papua New Guinea is one country that has a lot of registered security firms that monitor locations and assets of clients, with certain security firms having well-established client response capabilities. A partnership with police will be effective in clamping down on suburban crime and nuisance.
Plan to launch a police and security firm partnership through our radio network. A separate radio network for those particular security firms who are interested. We'll form a committee again, and we'll have a separate radio network, not being hooked up to police, not being hooked up to any particular security firm, but a separate one which will sit in our operations center.
With the police and security firm partnership being worked on, Assistant Commissioner for Police, NCD and Central Command, Anthony Wagambi Jr., says security officers from interested firms will be manning a separate communications line and will relay information to police.
And each of these firms will have a radio of their own sitting in the operations center. So the security firms, their guards who are stationed at certain locations, and their vehicles who go around and with the supervisor go around to check on them or the response units or that, when they see something happening, they will radio their base, and their base will radio police. And when they're radioing their base, all the other bases of the security firms also listening in. So we all participate to assist each other. So it's another form of CCTV, it's another form of proactive networking and proactive policing.
The Assistant Commissioner of Police says this will be very effective and complement the modernized Police Operations Center that will soon open.
So that's another initiative which we're going to launch. We are waiting for the Operations Center to be open, and then we will put the CCTV live streaming in, and we will enter into that partnership with the security firms.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
Nipa Kutubu in the Southern Highlands province is continuing its investment in primary education. A new double classroom was recently opened at Poroma Primary School in the Poroma local level government. The DDA has invested close to 30 million kina over the last 8 years in this sector of education.
The Poroma Primary School in Nipa Kutubu's Poroma LLG was the recipient of a new double classroom funded by the DDA at the cost of 150,000 kina. This will now accommodate at least 80 students.
This standard double classroom, tomorrow's generation will always go there. Will always go there. So that's why if they enter the 4 classrooms that I have delivered, through my DDA, not me, but through my DDA.
District Planner Robin Tuna says primary education is a priority for the district government.
Right, underneath law, provincial governments are looking at our high schools. All right, underneath law, you mean your district DDAs are looking at work blow primary sector. So inside Nipa Kutubu, in the last 8 years, under the leadership of Honorable Jeffrey Komal, Nibla work in 121 double classroom. Now today this is the 121.
The DDA has invested close to 20 million kina in primary education alone in the last 8 years. Teacher houses will follow as part of the district development plan.
Inside the 1 year, this is a double classroom, the entire Nipa Kutubu. And inside the 1 year, I'm Nipa finishing. And then by me looking for staff house. Planning and this lakan. Visionary also to get this lakan. Me not make him number. One block vision, one block plan, me completed finish. Okay, then next lot.
The DDA, through MP Komal, wants to ensure all its children sit in a good classroom and learn, all aimed at building the human resource of the district. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister James Marape has made a call to major economies in the Pacific region such as Japan, Australia and New Zealand to open up an economic bubble for countries in the region. PM Marape made the appeal aimed at addressing the COVID-19 crisis during the 9th Pacific Alliance Leaders Meeting, which was held yesterday via virtual conferencing.
The Prime Minister has always maintained during his speeches since COVID-19 reached Papua New Guinea in March 2020 that COVID-19 is not only a health issue but also an economic one which has had direct impacts on the country's economy.
On the space of COVID-19 and the effect that it has had on the economies, and I did point to the fact that COVID-19 is not just a health issue, but COVID-19 is an economic issue. It has a consequence, direct consequence of economy. Now, related to our PNG experience, we have not shut down our borders strictly per se. We have learned and adapted to living with COVID-19. Our National Pandemic Act has enabled us to tailor-make specific regulations and rules and for us to live with COVID-19.
During a week that has also seen Prime Minister James Marape having bilateral talks with Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga during a virtual online bilateral summit, PM Marape appealed to the major economy players of the Pacific region via virtual conferencing during the 9th Pacific Alliance Leaders Meeting to open up a Pacific COVID bubble to enable struggling countries to get back on track.
With COVID-19 and borders shut down globally, many of our small Pacific Island nations are faced with the economy struggling as we speak. Most of them depend on tourism. Most of them depends on fisheries. Most of us depend on export of our raw materials to our markets, and we made special intervention for Japan and the economies in the Pacific region, including Australia and New Zealand, to have a specific economic bubble in which we operate inside and trade inside, so that our small Pacific Island nations, including Papua New Guinea, is not harmed further when COVID-19's effect continues to be pushed on into 2022 and 2023 and into the immediate future. So,
PM Marape, in making the call, also thanked the countries Japan, Australia and New Zealand for their support to smaller nations and economies in the Pacific region during difficult COVID times over recent months. Danny Sorere, National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. More stories after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. Pacific Institute of Leadership and Governance under the new PILAG Act 2017 is committed to help reform the public service to function effectively and efficiently. CEO Michael Barabe says the institution is going through self-assessment by developing reform policies and plans, including demand-driven courses for public servants. The CEO was speaking during its third public servants graduation program yesterday.
Being a senior public service institution, PILAG, formerly known as the Institute of Public Administration, values excellent services to the public service. Under its new PILAG Act 2017, the institution is going through self-assessment by developing reform policies and plans. Their main focus is to reach out to sub-national level to empower public servants and boost public service efficiency and effectiveness.
We are realigning ourselves from what we used to be the PNG Institute of Public Administration. We are now known as Pacific Institute of Leadership and Governance. Under the new PILAG Act 2017, we value excellence of service, and our public service is training. The Institute is going through refinement, self-assessment, and institutionalization by developing reformist policies and restructuring and plans.
While the PILAG Act enables the institution to operate as a business entity, it needs government support to achieve its aspirations. Since its inception as the Pacific Institute of Leadership and Governance, the institution has partnered with various government departments to roll out competency-based training for public servants, and they are restructuring courses to provide demand-driven courses to support the public servants. They are also rolling out various programs at the district level.
To be industrious requires technical vocational training involving targeting viability skills. PILAG is restructuring its courses to provide demand-driven courses. We are focusing on soft-skill gap-filling courses. We are considering SMEs, post-public servants or retirees, sub-national communities to contribute to the downstream processing.
Through its public-private partnership, they have partnered with SP Brewery Foundation to roll out training for public servants. This has seen over 100 public servants graduate after completing short courses at the institution. According to PILAG Interim Board Chair Thaya Sansan, the board is pursuing opportunities to partner with institutions in the region. So far, they have partnered with Australia and New Zealand to support public servants in the region.
I must also add that the revised PILAG Act, coupled with the rebranding of the Institute of PILAG, has not only redirected the focus of the Institute, but also empowered it to pursue diversified and inclusive public sector training, not only in PNG, but the Pacific Island countries as well.
With the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the country, the institution has introduced online training for its students, and there is a need for an improved capacity to enable wider access and reach.
In order to implement these strategic aims, we need to develop an enabling environment in which our human, financial, and physical resources are appropriately allocated and deployed to help us sustain sustainable excellence in public sector capacity development.
Because of COVID-19 gave a lesson to PILAG, now we are going on online training. That's a new method of training that we will deliver in the district and provinces as years to come.
Rayon Lakingu National, MTV News.
Public Service Minister Joe Sungi has challenged all government departments, provincial and district administrations to continue to sponsor public servants to take up training at PILAG. He says the training will develop their skills and knowledge and help develop the public sector workforce at the national and subnational level. The minister further adding that new public servants joining the public sector will take short courses on leadership and governance. This is to help them better understand the public service before joining the workforce. The minister was speaking during the third graduation ceremony at PILAG yesterday.
Recipients, it's not just you, but your departments, your provincial administrations, PHAs, or your from our discipline force that have sent you to come here. I'd like to encourage you to continue to sponsor our public servants to come back to school. Like before I finish, I'd like to say again, two most important training that we've now approved, NHS approved before I finish. One is that for every new entry into the public service, they must undergo a certificate in public administration, or basically, civil of government, school of government. This is actually a school of government. Then the other one is if you are going to take up a management position, a leadership position, you must have a diploma in management and leadership before you even get a position. So this is now already a mandatory requirement. So those of you that have already up to the states, you are now on the right track, and we'll train those further below you to make sure that we achieve that.
PNG Nurses Association, following its meeting in the nation's capital recently, has highlighted some issues that the nurses in the country are facing. These include nurses' awards, COVID-19 overtime allowances, and the COVID-19 vaccination rollout program. The association will be working together with the National Department of Health and respective PHAs to ensure these issues are addressed.
The PNG Nurses Association Congress meeting, which was held in the nation's capital, ended yesterday. The meeting saw various national executives and provincial branch executives in attendance to discuss issues affecting the nurses in the country. Some of these issues highlighted in the meeting include nurses' awards, COVID-19 overtime allowance, and COVID-19 vaccination rollout.
And we have liabilities to be backdated, which will be for the previous two awards. Two consecutive awards and a new award.
According to PNG Nurses Association Vice President Esther Pisoro, the nurses in the country are yet to receive their COVID-19 overtime allowance. She said since the start of the pandemic, nurses in the country have been in the forefront. Most nurses have been faced with many challenges, stress and anxiety, and they are entitled to this allowance. She challenged nurses to work with their provincial health authorities to ensure they are paid.
This includes the other provinces out there, other members. Your respective PHA will make sure that they need to pay your COVID overtime allowances, that you have to work along with your branch presidents and regional presidents so that make sure you all should be paid that. That should be paid out by the help of the DPM and the finance.
The nurses also raised concerns on the COVID-19 vaccination rollout in the country. They say nurses in charge of the cold chain system and the rollout of the vaccines are not fully aware of the COVID-19 vaccines. They say policy framework and processes must be made known to the nurses.
Because we have other nine vaccines that we do roll out, EPI program, just like any other outbreaks happen in our country. The EPI team controls the cold chain system, and it monitors and evaluates the progress of the vaccines for the country. And some nurses, some health workers and nurses are not getting because information is not coming out clearly.
With most of these issues highlighted in the Congress meeting, the executives will be working with the Health Department and relevant stakeholders to ensure these issues are addressed. Rayon Lakingu, National, EMTV News.
The recent Congress meeting in the nation's capital has also revealed that most nurses in rural areas of the country are yet to receive their full payment of the Nurses Awards. The nurses executives have agreed to take this matter up with the Department of Personnel Management and the Health Department to ensure nurses are paid. They say they will also take legal action to ensure justice is served.
Two log of nursing awards that came on, the 2011 to 2013 and the 2016 to 2018 awards. From the response from all the presidents of the associations throughout the 22 provinces and the regional representatives, we gathered that a lot of the nurses from the rural setting and also from a few hospitals, they have not received their awards in full, as per the agreement between the major stakeholders like the DPM, Industrial Registrar, the DPM, the Treasury and Health Department, to pay the nurses their award. Through the Congress meeting, we have agreed that the association should take this matter up as priority to make sure that our nurses throughout the rural districts, the remote areas of Papua New Guinea are paid their outstanding awards. And if this is not done, then we have all agreed for the association office to take this matter up through the legal system to see that justice is done to our nurses in the rural areas.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Over 50 athletes are taking part in the 2021 PNG Air Grand Prix Series, currently underway at Sir John Guy Stadium. The tournament is an elite-level competition aimed at aspiring athletes vying for places on Athletics PNG team next year. The program also caters for national athletes and also a talent ID exercise. Track and field athletes from all over the country have flown in to compete in the tournament. This is first of two-part Grand Prix series, which will be held in Port Moresby from July 2 to July 5. And that story wraps up Trukai Sports. The weather report after these messages. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoniPlus, with you always.
Regional forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Port Moresby, mostly fine, partly cloudy. Popondetta, mostly fine. In the Momase region, Lae, mostly fine, partly cloudy. Wewak and Vanimo, partly cloudy with chances of afternoon showers or two. In the New Guinea Islands region, Lorengau, partly cloudy. Kokopo, Rabaul, mostly fine. In the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, partly cloudy with chance of some showers. Mendi and Wabeg, mostly cloudy.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoniPlus, with you always.
And that's the news, sports and weather for today, Saturday, the 3rd of July, 2021. Pleasant viewing. Have a safe weekend. Bye for now.